Food can be a scarce resource in Minecraft speedruns. This is especially true if you are playing Hypermodern, or just Villageless in general, where a few hunger bars can be the difference between completing a run and choking. In this video I will teach you how to get the most out of your food, and I guarantee that you will learn something because some of these strategies are brand new discoveries. The first thing I want to talk about is sprint jumping. And you're probably thinking that I will tell you to not sprint jump, because sprinting takes food, jumping takes food, so sprint jumping must take a lot of food, right? Well, it's actually the complete opposite. Sprint jumping consumes 40% less food than sprinting. And this seems counterintuitive at first, but the reason it happens is because you don't consume any sprinting food when you're in the air. So in conclusion, you should just always sprint jump, because it's just faster and more food efficient compared to sprinting. If we want to preserve food, it makes sense to investigate what the biggest source of food consumption is. So I analyzed the world files of all sub-20 1.16 runs on the leaderboard, and the thing that used the most hunger by far was healing. In these runs, healing consumed 70% of all food. The remaining 30%, by the way, was mostly used up by sprinting and jumping. For reference, regenerating one heart uses as much hunger as sprint jumping for 200 blocks. So if you want to conserve food, your number one priority should be to not take damage. Now I want to talk about food stats. And normally when you're talking about food stats, you're talking about the amount of food and saturation a food type restores. However, as we have just established that food is primarily used to heal in speedruns, I think a much more useful statistic to use is how much health each food type restores. So I created this table that shows how many hearts each food type heals for. I've also created a more detailed spreadsheet that shows these values and many other stats that I'll be linking in the description. To get the absolute most out of a piece of food, you should eat it when it will put you at exactly 10 hunger. This ensures that you get the full amount of healing and do not waste any food. So in this example, I have cooked salmon, which gives 3 food, so I wait until my hunger is 7 before eating, and as the table shows, I heal for 4 hearts. And this may seem trivial, but I have to emphasize it, because I've seen top runners lose runs to wasting food by eating when their hunger bar is almost full. Now, sometimes you just want to heal right away, and don't have time to wait for your hunger to deplete. In that case, you should wait until your hunger is below 9, and then eat 1 piece of food. That is what I'm doing in this example, and as you will see, despite quote-unquote wasting food by only making use of 1.5 of the food points bread gives, I still heal for the full 3 hearts that is shown in the table. 3 pieces of bread healed me for 9 hearts. Up until now, I've been talking about how to be as food efficient as possible, but what if food is not an issue at all, and you just want to heal as quickly as possible? If that is the case, you should generally eat on cooldown, meaning you should eat as soon as your hunger drops below 10. For lack of a better term, I refer to this as quick healing, and it is the fastest way to heal for all types of food except for the ones shown here. For these types of food, you heal faster by keeping your hunger at 9 or 9.5, but not 10. Anyhow, different types of food heal at different rates when you are quick healing. Here you can see a comparison between bread and cooked chicken. Which one do you think will heal the fastest? Cooked chicken gives more food and saturation than bread, so it should be better in every regard, right? As it turns out, bread heals about 50% faster, despite having worse food stats. The reason this happens is rather technical, so I won't go into detail, but I have devised a quick heal tier list that should give you a rough idea of how good each food type is in terms of quickly restoring health. Generally, the more food an item restores, the quicker it heals, but 2 notable exceptions to this rule are cooked chicken and mushroom stew, which both heal slower than you would expect. So how do you make use of this information? Essentially, if you are carrying multiple types of food and you are not in imminent danger, I would suggest you start by eating your slow healing foods. That way, you save your quick healing foods in case you need to rapidly regenerate a lot of health later in the run. For example, in a blaze fight or when ender pearling many times in a row. For those of you who want something more accurate than a tier list, I have calculated the health regeneration per second for all food types, which you can see in the spreadsheet that is linked in the description. Lastly, I want to cover a mechanic that I discovered that I call saturation clamping. It basically allows you to save food just by using a certain technique to eat. To the right, I just carelessly eat all my berries at the same time, which is not optimal. And to the left, I eat one berry, then wait for my saturation to deplete, eat another one, and so on. By the way, you know that your saturation is depleted if your hunger bar wiggles. And this technique of only eating food when your saturation is depleted is what I call saturation clamping. Again, I don't want to get too technical, but this mechanic essentially allows us to generate a small amount of food out of thin air. The effect is most noticeable for low-value foods. If you're eating anything that is comparable to an apple or better, I wouldn't bother thinking about this, but for low-value foods such as dried kelp, raw meat, berries, and raw potatoes, you can increase the food value by up to 25% by abusing saturation clamping. In this specific comparison, I essentially created 1.5 food points from nothing by using saturation clamping. And that's it. Thanks for watching. In this video I mostly explained how to do things and not why they work, so if you have any questions, I'll gladly answer them in the comments.